Forces as Operation Desert Storm rolls north through Kuwait and into Iraq, well ahead of schedule and expectations.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight, America at war. Reporting from Saudi Arabia, Tom Brokaw with Garrick Utley in New York.
Good evening. It is one of the largest military operations in modern history, and if the early patterns hold, it will be a very short war and a very complete victory. Operation Desert Storm tonight, rolling through and sealing off Iraqi positions in Kuwait and in Iraq. Almost no opposition. The biggest problem in the early hours, the thousands of Iraqis who have surrendered. There was so little resistance from most units, they made better time racing across the desert than most American commuters during rush hour. This is the 2nd Marine Division, and it rounded up hundreds of Iraqi prisoners as it headed north. NBC's Rick Davis was with the 101st Airborne when it invaded Iraq.
2,000 members of the 101st Airborne landed by helicopter 70 miles inside Iraq. They carried with them a wide arsenal of weapons, including vehicles mounted with TOW missiles. Another 2,000 members of the 101st Airborne and a massive array of weapons are on their way by road, punching their way north. They are, at this point, behind the Revolutionary Guards. They are doing so well that they're running into very little opposition, and those they are meeting are surrendering.
The 18th Army Artillery invaded Iraq as well, sending round after round into enemy positions. Young American gunners were eager to complete the battle.
We had to go kill people, but that's the only way we're getting home. I see it's either them or me.
The big guns of the USS Missouri, a holdover from World War II, were hard at work from the sea, concentrating on the Kuwaiti coastline. The third leg of the air-land-sea battle plan. F-16 attack planes which flew close air support for the troops on the ground. One Marine plane was reported lost today. Saddam Hussein did try another Scud attack on the Saudi capital of Riyadh, and again, the Patriots successfully intercepted. Along the road to Kuwait City, it looks as if the battle has been going on for days, not hours. The destruction is so complete. American military commanders caution the toughest fighting is yet to come. But tonight, they're well ahead of schedule and keeping the pressure on Saddam Hussein.
I would hope that the son of a gun would wake up and smell the coffee, frankly, but we'll just have to wait and see.
We want to remind you that official details are tightly held by the military. We do not yet have a complete list of American casualties, for example, but based on what we know, based on the early going, if it continues in this fashion, and there is no guarantee that it will, but if it does continue in this fashion, it will be a triumph of historic proportions for President Bush and for the American military. NBC's John Cochran is at the White House tonight, and Fred Francis is at the Pentagon. Fred, Iraq promised the mother of all battles, and now it appears that it's about to become an orphan. Let's go to John Cochran and find out what the president is thinking about all of this tonight. John?
Tom, the president has just received a briefing, a military briefing, after which he was described as very gratified by the initial successes. But he was also obviously concerned that American casualties are starting to increase.
Having urged other Americans to pray for Allied forces, Mr. Bush did the same at the Episcopal church known as the Church of Presidents, St. John's, just a block from the White House. During the service, the President and Mrs. Bush could hear anti-war protesters pounding drums. As the Bushes left, police moved in to arrest a demonstrator, one of several arrested near the White House. But the President knows overall support for the war is strong. What happens after the war is uncertain. Who, for example, protects Kuwait after the Iraqis are expelled? On Meet the Press, Bush's national security advisor said, "This is one job that can be done without Americans."
Certainly, we must have a force around the borders of Kuwait in order to preserve the security of that state. But that might very well be able to be done by Arab forces.
Today, the Soviets criticized Bush for turning down Moscow's request to delay the attack a day or two. U.S. officials say new reports of atrocities by Iraq forced Bush to move.
It was rounding up and executing Kuwaiti citizens, holding some of them hostages as human shields.
And the big question, what does the future hold for Saddam Hussein?
Assuming that he suffers a crushing defeat, does this lower the chances that Saddam can survive politically?
Hopefully.
More than hopefully?
I think the result will be an Iraq with seriously diminished military capability, but still with some defensive capability.
U.S. officials tell NBC News they would not be surprised if the Emir of Kuwait is back in his homeland tomorrow, Kuwait's National Day, the Kuwaiti equivalent of July 4th. Tom?
Thank you, John Cochran. At the White House, the residence of the Commander-in-Chief. Now let's go across the Potomac to the Pentagon and NBC's Fred Francis, who has the military equation for us tonight. And Fred, what did happen to the Iraqis?
Well, Tom, the first battle reports received here in Washington made it seem as if the Iraqi army was observing a curfew. Few of the Iraqis came out to fight, and most of those who did surrendered quickly. The Allied assault, a long-planned combination of deep strikes with high speed and heavy firepower, was going so well by this morning that the President was told by Defense Secretary Cheney and General Colin Powell to expect only 3 or 4 days of heavy fighting.
The resistance has been light all across the front. The breaching operations have been successful. The casualties, fortunately, have been extremely light, as Norm said. One of the big problems we've been faced with are just dealing with all of the prisoners that are coming south.
Other officials said there were fewer than a dozen American casualties in the first 12 hours. But NBC News has been told those figures are now much higher. The first American, British, and French tanks crossed into Iraq early yesterday afternoon. They were 40 miles into Iraq without significant opposition and, said one senior official, would roll 100 miles deep into southern Iraq before turning south to control a large slice of Iraq and confront Saddam's battered Republican guards.
We have no interest in occupying Iraq, but we've also said that there won't be any sanctuary inside Iraq for those forces that have been involved in occupying Kuwait.
With the largest armored columns in the north, American and Allied forces in the south are in the process of splitting much of occupied Kuwait into battle zones to encircle Saddam's forces in several areas and block them with thousands of troops flown into southern Iraq by helicopter. The overall goal is to form a buffer zone on Kuwait's northern flank, from Basra to the Saudi border, to prevent a retreat. Well, Tom, that is the military goal. The political goal is to destroy or capture the army which keeps Saddam in power, to be able to craft the terms of the peace in the wake of Iraq's defeat. Tom?
Thank you, Fred Francis. At the Pentagon, Baghdad Radio tonight broadcast a speech from Saddam Hussein, what's left of his troops in the field, and he said, "Fight them in the style of the faithful men. They are the camp of atheism, hypocrisy, and treachery." And Iraq then went on to claim that it, in fact, is winning the war. When Nightly News continues in a moment, Gary Cutley in New York and NBC's Tom Aspel in Baghdad.
Send up a crossfoot. Give me an aft check.
There's a place in the friendly skies where not everyone's so friendly.
Stop. Hold it. I need 3 hours, minimum. Check it out.
Over 9,000 mechanics of United Airlines work here.
Give me a mini grinder.
They're picky, fussy, stubborn. But if you fly, they're the best friends you'll ever have. United, rededicated to giving you the service you deserve. Come fly the friendly skies.
How fast does Dristan nasal spray start working to clear up congestion?
Hey, I didn't expect it to start to work as fast.
Dristan nasal spray starts to work in seconds.
Ooh, I love the taste of Crab Delights from Lewis Kemp. Crab Delights tonight. It's a seafood paradise.
So easy, so delicious.
Crab Delights tonight
from Lewis Kemp.
If you were in Iraq today listening to Baghdad Radio, it would sound like a different war, a totally different one, a war in which Iraqi forces are repelling the American and Allied attacks and inflicting casualties, heavy casualties. It may not be the truth at all, but it is the news in Baghdad tonight, and Tom Aspel is there.
Right off the dock, Baghdad was attacked again from the air. A reminder to the city that even though the ground war may be 400 miles to the south, the air war is still very much a danger. Throughout the day, Iraqis had listened for news of their army's progress against the offensive from the U.S. and its allies. 6 hours after the attack began, Saddam Hussein spoke on Baghdad radio. Bush and Fahd of Saudi Arabia have stabbed us in the back, he said, but God is on the side of Iraq. He told his people to fight with every means at their disposal and promised victory over the invaders. Official military communiques began mentioning the ground war after midday. The first, issued by the Iraqi High Command, spoke of attacks on 6 Iraqi divisions in the Southern War Theater and said that the Iraqi forces were holding and inflicting heavy casualties on the Allied forces. A second communique, read out over the radio just after dark here, denied Allied reports that U.S. Marines had captured the island of Faylaka off the Kuwaiti coast and challenged the Americans to provide proof of their battle claims. Here in Baghdad, Iraqis are paying close attention to news of the battle on their radios. There's hardly a family in the capital which doesn't have a man at the front. They feel their country's future now hangs in the balance. Tom Aspel, NBC News, Baghdad.
The Gulf crisis and now the war itself have divided the Arab world. Egypt and Syria side with the United States and its allies and have committed their troops. On the other side, Arabs who chose to side with Saddam Hussein. For them, tonight is a time for a painful reappraisal, or perhaps just for frustration and anger. An example, Jordan. Dennis Murphy is in Amman tonight. Dennis?
Garrick, it's very near time now to sort out winners and losers in the Arab world. Jordan seems dazed by it all. Most people here realize Saddam is being crushed, and they're in the loser's corner. 50 women chanted outside the U.S. Embassy here today. American citizens were advised to stay at home and exercise extreme caution. The Arabic newspapers condemned the United States for brushing off the last-minute Iraqi offer to withdraw from Kuwait. George Bush is a hated man on some streets here.
Tell this guy to get out of here. This is our land.
There was little news of the war itself. The streets were mostly quiet.
People are stunned by the sudden change, and they're worried and confused and hopeful.
In the Palestinian refugee camps, the radio announced the official government reaction to the ground war. Anger, sorrow, condemnation.
We are still insisting that a ceasefire is something that should be sought, that bloodshed should stop.
Worshippers at Amman's Anglican church tonight were asked to pray for peace.
Perfect forgiveness.
At a local mosque, this man said he prayed for Iraq's victory. In Yemen today, thousands took to the street to chant for Iraq and Saddam Hussein. Yemen, like Jordan, like Algeria, stands to lose big with the Arab states supporting the Allies. Egypt's President Hosni Mubarak was asked today if Saddam should be removed from power.
I have said this very clearly. I cannot work with him. I never trust this man.
Trust. When the war is over, the Arab states will find themselves looking at one another across a huge rift, the divide between winners and losers of the Gulf War. Garrick?
Thank you, Dennis Murphy in Amman. And we'll have more news on the war as we continue.
What can a Pitney Bowes mailing system do about rising postal rates? Watch this. Seen enough?
Ask me what counts most after 40 years in the car business, and I don't have to think twice. 1, the minivans. We invented them. 2, driver's airbags in every car we build in this country. What do we do for an encore? Put them together. Minivans with a driver's side airbag. Nobody else is doing it. You still have to use your seatbelt with a minivan airbag, but it will save lives. A lot of lives.
What's different about Polident? Refreshing mint. There's a minty mouthwash ingredient in every tablet. Other cleansers may get dentures clean, but Polident gets the minty fresh clean. Super strength, super minty, Polident.
Why do I enjoy healthier Alpine lace, low cholesterol and low sodium Swiss low cheese? Because
because it tastes so good. And now it's even lower in fat.
The healthy and tasty Swiss low cheese tastes so good.
As the ground offensive rolls ahead this evening, one frustrated bystander is in the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. Although he has supported the UN resolutions, the Soviets have had no role in the war and no success in their diplomatic efforts to prevent it. So all they can do now is watch. In Moscow, Bob Abernathy with the Kremlin reaction.
At the Kremlin, deep disappointment over the ground attack and formal regret that diplomacy had not worked.
The instinct to rely on a military solution prevailed.
After last week's intensive negotiations, today's statement said the differences between what Iraq had accepted and what other countries wanted were not too wide.
The Soviet Union expresses regret that a most realistic chance to secure a peaceful outcome has been passed up.
The official view here is that the U.S.-Soviet alliance is solid, but the personal relationship between Presidents Bush and Gorbachev may have been strained. Bush never told Gorbachev in advance the attack was on. Today, the often hardline Soviet news agency TASS said prospects for a settlement of the crisis have been seriously complicated. It went on, American troops are visibly rubbing their hands in expectation of the chance to crush the Iraqis completely. Gorbachev's support of the anti-Iraq coalition is unpopular with the resurgent right wing here, 100,000 of whom turned out yesterday to honor the Soviet military. Soviet conservatives are uneasy about a major war just across their southern border, where Soviet air defense forces are now on high alert. Gorbachev must also be careful not to offend the 50 million Soviet Muslims to whom Iraqis are already appealing for support. Meanwhile, another huge demonstration today by reformers who backed Gorbachev's principal rival, Boris Yeltsin. Beside the Kremlin walls, the crowd chanted, "Gorbachev, resign." With all these pressures, today's official statement criticizing the ground attack was perhaps as mild as was politically possible. It suggests a strain, but not a break, in U.S.-Soviet cooperation. Bob Abernathy, NBC News, Moscow.
And we can be sure that the Soviets will be back in the Middle East looking for political influence when this war is over. Tom?
Thank you, Garrick. It's been almost 5 decades since the world has seen a ground war on the scale of the one that is taking place here in the Persian Gulf. And that was World War II. The battlefield was Europe. NBC's Keith Miller tonight in London with a reaction from Europe to the war now in the Persian Gulf.
Good evening, Tom. European leaders of allied nations expressed confidence that the war would be won, but they cautioned against thinking the worst is over.
As a nation, we are rightly proud of our armed forces.
From Buckingham Palace, a wartime broadcast, unprecedented for Queen Elizabeth II, who praised British troops.
I hope that we can unite in praying that their success will be as swift as it is certain, and that it may be achieved with as small a cost in human life and suffering as possible.
Prime Minister John Major, following a conversation with President Bush, appeared pleased by news from the front.
It may well be tougher in days to come, though the beginning has been as satisfactory as we could have hoped.
Appearing on French television, President Francois Mitterrand said Saddam Hussein was getting the battle he wanted, but would lose Kuwait. There is still the fear of terrorist attacks in Europe. All American military installations are on maximum alert. Denouncing the war, tens of thousands of people marched in Spain. People demonstrated in Madrid and Barcelona. Some chanted slogans against the United States. Speaking from the Vatican, Pope John Paul urged people to work and pray for the war to end as quickly as possible. Tonight in London, 100 anti-war activists held a lonely vigil outside the Church of St. Martin's in the Fields.
The overwhelming sentiment all across Europe today was for a quick war that may help limit the casualties, pain, and grief that accompany combat. Tom?
Thank you. Keith Miller in London tonight with news from the European front. Nightly News will continue in a moment with Gary Cutley in New York and news from the home front.
Ziploc presents Fingerman.
Hi, I'm your
here to demonstrate a big new idea. That's right, introducing the new Gripper Zipper from Ziploc. Now the easiest closing bag there is. In fact, I can even close it, whoa, blindfolded. I know it's closing because I can feel the zipper grabbing hold. It's locking. Feel it close the first time, every time. And you don't have to see it to believe it. Ooh. Ziploc bags with the new Gripper Zipper. The easiest closing bag there is.
Flu update. The Centers for Disease Control report. 3 highly contagious flu strains. And they're spreading unchecked. Millions will be stricken. What will you do? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Theraflu is hot liquid medicine. Strong therapy for flu symptoms. Hot liquid therapy that works fast. What will you do when you get the flu? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Strong therapy for flu symptoms.
Red Lobster introduces something new, something delicious. It's our specially priced new Shrimp Sensations dinner, just $7.99. With the tang of succulent new shrimp Veracruz. And the flair of zesty new Parmesan fried shrimp, together with popcorn shrimp. All this just $7.99 for a limited time, but only at Red Lobster. So hurry.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover.
This is the way it has always been. The sun has always blessed the land. And our ways have always passed to caring hands. You'll find the taste of that purity and goodness in every jar of Smucker's preserves and jellies. With a name like Smucker's, it has to be good.
For the American troops this evening fighting in Kuwait and Iraq, the ground war is in a very real way the beginning of a long journey home. They've known for some time that they would not and could not come home until the war is over and won. But in this country, some things just won't wait for the homecoming. Keith Morrison visited the families of some Marines at Camp Pendleton, California.
Tammy's sister got married yesterday. It helped make some sense of Tammy's life organizing this. Her husband, Carl, was to have been best man, but he is in the Gulf at the front.
And now also we wish to ask all of you to bow in a silent prayer for Sergeant Carl Comer.
There are all kinds of reasons to cry at weddings. Just before the service, Tammy found out the ground war had begun.
I don't even remember the ceremony at the wedding. I wasn't paying attention to it.
She was back at work this morning, managing rental properties near the big Marine base, playing mother hen to the other wives whose husbands may be in harm's way, too.
He called me Wednesday night. He's been calling me. It's just like, I could tell, you know, the fear in his voice and everything.
And was astonished to hear a friend's gunnery sergeant husband had called home after a trip into Kuwait.
I've knocked down 25 tanks so high, you know.
The phone has made this war much different for families at home. Better? Not necessarily.
Hadn't said this was the last time he was going to get to talk to us. I'm never going to talk to you. She's just crying. I'm like,
what a roller coaster. They hear not enough and too much at the same time.
During the day, I'm pretty busy. I work and with the kids and all, but it affects me the most at night.
Such emotional strain is not a thing one easily gets used to. And now the roller coaster is at its climax. And so the whole town has a nervous ear on the news and a hand out to give or take comfort.
And at Lord Jesus, you...
Across town this morning was a church service at which people touched the families of servicemen and prayed for all soldiers and an end to this soon.
We pray every night and just want to bring them home safe.
Something Tammy was already praying for. Keith Morrison, NBC News, Oceanside, California.
And Tom Brokaw in Saudi Arabia and I will be back in just a moment with some final thoughts on this day of war.
The engine test looked good.
This engine's got incredible stamina. It'll do it.
But there was only one way to be sure. The Hullman Indy Challenge. 24 hours at over 100 miles an hour. No test for an ordinary truck. Lap after lap, hour after hour, this production Chevy truck closed in on the record, and in the end, shattered it.
Really solid engine.
And with 84 models redesigned and engineered, GM is putting quality on the road.
It's the creamiest, the dreamiest. Velveeta shells and cheese. It's the creamiest, the dreamiest. Forget the powder, please.
Velveeta shells and cheese comes 2 more ways. Try bits of bacon, sizzling with real bacon. And Touch of Mexico with mild peppers and picante sauce. 2 more ways to enjoy Velveeta shells and cheese.
Only we taste like this. Velveeta makes it the creamiest. Velveeta shells and cheese.
Oh no, my hair's not only going gray, now it's getting thinner. I wish they made something for gray, thinning hair.
They have Grecian Plus. Grecian Plus is a fresh-smelling foam that gradually brings back natural-looking color, the famous Grecian way. But this Grecian has a big plus. It builds body for healthier, fuller-looking hair.
Your hair looks great. Feels thicker, too.
Grecian Plus, the total treatment for gray, thinning hair.
What pain reliever do doctors trust so much they've recommended it over 50 million times in just 6 years? Advil. Gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Safe, trusted, doctor recommended. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Based on these preliminary reports of almost surprisingly easy initial successes in the battlefield in Kuwait and Iraq, once again, the one thing that we can say that has been consistent throughout the showdown in the Persian Gulf is that conventional wisdom has almost always been wrong. You'll recall last summer, a lot of people thought that Saddam Hussein eventually would negotiate his way out of this. He did not. Then a lot of people believed that if it came to a ground war, the battle-hardened Iraqi army, after 8 years of fighting against Iran and with all that technology, would give the Allies on the ground a fight for their lives. So far, they have not. So, Garrett Utley, I think we just have to take this 1 hour at a time. We simply do not know how this battle is going to turn out, but all the indications are tonight is that the conventional wisdom, once again, has been wrong.
I think that's right, Tom, but we also have to be cautious. We had this optimism in the initial days of the airstrikes against Baghdad, particularly about casualties in this case. There are several more problems up this road in the next 3 or 4 days until we know what the real ultimate price is going to be. But what strikes me tonight is that with these initial successful reports coming in from all directions, we now very quickly have to sort of change our mode and think about what happens after this war. To really understand the magnitude of where we're going to be in the Middle East and the Persian Gulf. Perhaps there's nothing to compare with this shift in power since the end of World War II. The Soviet Union is not a player here. How are we, the Americans, going to use this power military and politically, whether it's in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or in the Gulf itself? And above all, how many troops are we going to keep there? What do you hear about that, Tom?
Well, I expect that we'll have a presence here in this part of the world for the rest of this decade. Even though President Bush has promised that the American troops will come home very swiftly, it seems to me that the magnitude of the security problems and the political problems here are so great that it will be impossible for the United States just to pack up and head back to the United States of America. Well, that's Nightly News up to the minute. Gary Utley and I will be here with round-the-clock coverage on this NBC station, of course, of America at War. And we want to remind you that coming up next, we'll have a special report, and Jane Pauley will join me at that time. That will be followed by a 1-hour edition of Expose. But now, speaking for Garrett Utley and all the folks at NBC News, we'll say goodbye. We'll be back in just a moment.